All right, so we are ready for our very last step in completing our sculpture, refinement, and then making the stand. So we've talked about refinement a little bit here and there, and what it basically means is looking at your artwork and thinking about where can you make improvements and adjustments to make it better. So I'm going to show you a few refinements that I'm going to make on my work, things that you might want to consider as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to be refining the edges of my piece. Now I have a couple of options. I could go in with scissors and clean up those cuts, or I can go in with a Sharpie and add some Sharpie underneath it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a piece of white paper because I'm working with Sharpie, and I'm going to put my piece on top of that white paper. I'm just using a notebook here for this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with my Sharpie, making sure my paint's dry before I do this. And I'm just gonna touch up those edges where I feel like maybe I need to do a better job with the outline, or anywhere where I'm seeing some white popping through on those edges. And by having the white notebook underneath, I'm just making sure that I'm not going to get this all over my desk. So I'm just taking the time to refine some of these details. Make improvements to them if necessary. Okay. Just looking around to see if there's anywhere else I want to touch up with my Sharpie. These small things can improve the overall appearance or quality of our final or finished piece of work. Okay, so this side's looking pretty good to me. Maybe right here. Okay, and then I can flip it over and check the other side and see if there are some lines that need cleaned up over here. Okay, I think this one's pretty much done. So I can go ahead and set this piece aside, and I can take a look at this piece and do the same thing that I just did. So I'm just gonna touch up some areas. Remember, it's okay to turn your work. So I didn't go over every line. I'm just going over the areas where I really see that I need to pay a little bit more attention to detail. So another thing I'm gonna do here, I see a little bit of white on this that I want to go away. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. Just like that. I'll flip it over, do my refining on the other side as well. And then once I have everything refined, I'm gonna go ahead and put my stand together. Okay, so once you've finished refining these pieces, you wanna go in and do any refinements that you feel are necessary to your stand. Okay, so I'm going to show you one thing I did. I didn't record it. I don't think you really need to watch me do it, so I think this is pretty obvious. So if you remember at the beginning when we did this stand and we set it up, we put some notes top, inside, and bottom to help us remember some information. And then obviously I have painted the inside of my stand because when you look down on top of the sculpture, you can see inside of there a little bit. So what I decided to do was I took some of my paint that I had left over, so I had some of that yellow and pink color left over, and I just took a really big brush and I brushed that on really quickly just so that it's not going to be, really vibrant white against all of this color. So I've done that. So that's another refinement that we're making. So these are all those little extra details when we're talking about refinement, all those little extra details that you take the time to go back and adjust. That's really what helps improve the overall quality of your work. Okay, so I think this is going to be dry in a couple of minutes. And as soon as this is dry, we're going to move on to putting this all together, which is really exciting because I've already taken a peek at my work to see how things are working, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I've had a lot of fun doing this lesson, and hopefully you have too. So as soon as this is dry, we'll come back and put this together. Okay, so this is pretty much dry. So we're going to move on to the next step. And for the next step, you're going to need a pencil, a ruler, scissors, and some type of tape. If you have clear tape, it would probably be better, but use whatever you have. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to label these very lightly. 1, so this is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so when I fold this together, this is going to make the stand. And what I'm doing right now is I'm going to be cutting the slots to insert our first piece of our sculpture. So I am going to go ahead and cut into side 2 and side 4 for that. So I am going to go ahead and take my ruler. I'm working on sides 2 and 4. And I am going to make a mark at 1 inch, which is essentially halfway on the section. So let's zoom in here for a second. Focus this. Okay, so each of these sections was 2 inches. So I am going to divide section 2 into, I'm going to mark at the 1 to divide it in half, okay? I'm going to come do the same thing here in section 4. I'm going to mark 1. And what's going to happen, I'm going to go a little bit further down and make the same marks. And I am going to connect those very, very lightly with my ruler. And these are going to be where I make my first cuts. So each of these first cuts is going to be about, I'd say maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch. We can always cut deeper into the sections if we need to. So let's go ahead and say this is about 1/2 inch. And this is also, it's about 3/4 inch. Each one's more about 3/4 inch. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to very carefully cut on that line. Okay. So now when I'm putting this together, there's a slit here and here, and I'm going to zoom out again for you so we can see a little bit more of what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to hold this together, and I am going to start with this piece getting inserted into my stand. And right now I'm just going to hold it together with my hands. I'm not going to tape it yet. And I'm just going to take these 2 edges and begin to insert it. Now, if we look at this, clearly it needs to go further down in. So I'm going to make the cut on this side, because this side of the neck is longer, a little bit longer. And all I'm going to do is just cut carefully and slowly with my scissors. So you can always cut more. So we'll start very slowly and continue to cut as we need. So I'm putting it back together. I'm taking this piece and I am inserting it here and here. Okay, so it's in there pretty well right now. I could go a little bit further to put this side in. I might go just a touch further on this side. Okay. Just a little bit. So the cut on this side is longer because this side of the piece is longer, whereas this cut is much shorter because this piece of the neck is shorter on this side. And then I'm just carefully inserting those in. Okay, so you can adjust it. I could maybe cut even further. So I may cut a little bit further on this side, okay, so that this piece is further inserted in. So I'll make another little cut. So you see I'm working very slowly, really taking my time. Okay, putting it back together. Inserting that long piece into the side. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with that at this point. I think those cuts are pretty good. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and tape the inside together now that I've made those cuts about where I want them. So remember, this is gonna be the top, this is the bottom. And what I'm gonna do now is just take a piece of tape. See if I can get this undone. And again, if you don't have clear tape, it's not the end of the world. You can use whatever works for you. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put about half of this piece of tape on top of side 4 in the stand. Remember, we put a 4 up here. I'm putting about half of the tape on that side, and then the other half of the tape is going to connect to side 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim this off. Okay, so you can kind of see that half of the tape is on the stand, half of the tape is hanging off right now. I'm just gonna press that firmly in place. And now what I'm gonna do is I am just going to tape these two edges together, and I want the tape on the inside. So I'm gonna fold this down a little bit like this. And I'm just going to line these edges up carefully. You may need to make some adjustments if they're not quite matching. So I'm being pretty picky with my own, and I'm gonna move those over a little bit. So one thing you can do is flatten this piece out. So 4, 3, 2, this is side 1. Flattening those out and bringing them right together on top of the tape. And then pressing them together firmly. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to cut off this little bit that I have hanging off the top. That's pretty good. I can always adjust again if I want to. Okay, so remember the cut here is going to match up with the long side of the neck that you cut. You're gonna insert that into there. Might take a couple of seconds. Don't panic if you don't get it at first. Okay. All right, so this has been inserted into there. So I have this stand and the forward-looking piece put together. All right, so now what we have to do is we've got to figure out where this guy's gonna go, or this gal, whatever you wanna call it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this on its edge and I'm going to insert it into the cut. And what I see is that as I am doing this, right, and I have it lined up in here, I'm gonna hold it straight and I can make a pencil line mark. So I'm just gonna mark the inside. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this and I've marked on the inside where I wanna cut. So let's see this again. This is a little bit hard to show you, so I'm doing the best I can here. So these are lined up like this, okay? So that tells me that my cut on this part of the stand, right, because this is gonna have to come down further into here, needs to happen right about here. So I'm gonna hold this straight. You might wanna get somebody to help you with this piece. And I'm just gonna make a little sketch mark, okay? That's gonna help me to start my cut. So I'm gonna go ahead and just like we did last time, I'm going to cut very slowly, very carefully. I can always come back in and cut more. All right, so I've made that cut in the back. I went about an inch down because I know I'm gonna go at least that far. So again, I'm gonna take the pieces and I'm going to start to insert them together. So what I'm gonna do in the back here is I'm sliding this down as I'm sliding those two pieces together, okay? And what that tells me is, because I don't want it to line up like this, I want it to line up a little bit further down. That means I probably need to extend my cut. So I'm gonna pull this piece out again. And I'm gonna extend this about another ½ inch to an inch, okay? So let's watch from this angle. So I'm taking this, sliding them together. I'm sliding the back of this head into that slit I just made. All right. And I'm gonna check the placement on the front. Okay, so I'm getting really close because on my piece, I want the line of the hat and the line of this hair to line up. So I'm going to, now I can't go any further with the piece in the front because I have to make a cut in the front now. So with this in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave this piece in the front and that's gonna be my guide. And so I'm gonna put my scissors right where that was and just cut about, I don't know, ½ inch to an inch. Just a little bit on this one. This one's gonna be a little bit less than the other cuts. Okay. And then I am just going to continue to try and slide that in. Okay, so I'm almost there. In fact, I think I am there. Okay, because my goal was to kind of line these lines up. So what you're gonna do is you're just going to check and make sure that you have everything where you want it to be when it's put together, and I think I do. So let's go ahead and see what this finished piece is looking like. So let me zoom out even further for you. Okay, so right now, this is what it looks like. Let's see if I can get a shot for you if it's standing up. Okay, so give me 1 second and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so here we are. I've put it all together. And here's a final shot of what it looks like. So here's what it looks like if you're looking at it at the just like perfect angle, and you basically just see the forward-looking face. But if we turn this, we can begin to see it from the different angles and see how it begins to change and kind of mirror those funny perspectives that we sometimes see in Cubist artwork, or that we typically see in Cubist artwork. So now we're starting to see how that profile piece is interacting with the forward-looking face. And I'll continue to move this for you so you can get a full view of what it looks like, because I'm not sure that I'll be able to bring it to school like this. It'll probably come to school in pieces, and then I can put it together maybe in person, we'll see. And then here's we're starting to move towards the other side of it, so more of the back view. So we're seeing it there. And again, if you're looking at just the right angle, you start to just see the forward-looking face. And then as it turns, we're seeing different views. So you're seeing how all the colors, and then again, if you're looking at the right angle, you see just the profile. And then again, we see different things happening depending on what angle we're looking at the sculpture from. So I hope you're seeing how, attention to detail and using a specific color palette that's thought out and studied helps to bring the artwork together. Now, certainly I'd say this is way more vibrant than the paintings we looked at, but that's okay, because we don't want to always be copying other people's artwork. What we want to do is learn from these artists who were very successful, begin to borrow ideas from them, and then adapt them to come up with our own artwork. So I can't wait to see what you guys come up with, and I hope you've enjoyed this project. All right, see you later.